Verse for opening a sutra. The unsurpassed profound and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of aeons. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold it, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. The Flower Adornment Sutra, Chapter 39, Entering the Dharma Realm, Part 2, The 10 Good Teachers of the 10 Dwellings. 4. Dwelling of Noble Birth. At that time, the youth good wealth with a single mind properly recollect the Dharma door of the Dharma's brightness. He entered it with profound faith. He single-mindedly recalled the Buddha, without severing the triple jewel. He praised the nature of being apart from desire. He recalled his good knowing adviser, who universally illumined the 3 periods of time. He recollected his great vows, which were to universally save all living beings, and to not become attached to conditioned existence. He ultimately pondered the self-nature of all dharmas. He was able to adorn and purify all worlds. Toward the assemblies in the way places of the Buddhas, with respect to the way places of the Buddhas, his heart was not attached. He gradually proceeded south until he arrived at the city of comfort and ease, and went looking for Megha. Then he saw him in the midst of a marketplace, seated upon a lion's throne speaking Dharma. 10,000 people surrounded him, while he spoke the Dharma door of adornment with the wheel of syllables. At that time, the youth good wealth bowed at his feet, circumambulated him limitless times, and putting his palms together before him, and said, Sagely One, I've already brought forth the resolve for Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi, but I still do not know how a bodhisattva studies the bodhisattva conduct, how he cultivates the bodhisattva path, how he flows and turns amid all destinies of existence, and never forgets or loses his resolve for Bodhi, how he attains a mind of level equality, which is solid and unmoving, how he attains a mind of purity, which cannot be destroyed, how he brings forth the power of great compassion and never grows weary, how he enters Dharani and universally attains to purity, how he brings forth the vast, great light of wisdom, and is free from obstructing darkness regarding any dharmas, how he becomes replete with the power of unobstructed eloquence of understanding and decisively comprehends the treasury of all profound meanings, how he attains the power of proper mindfulness and remembers and holds all the different dharma wheels, how he attains the power to purify the destinies and universally speaks the dharma within all destinies, how he attains the power of wisdom and is completely able to decisively discriminate the meanings of all dharmas. At that time, Megha said to good wealth, Good man, have you already brought forth the resolve for Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi? Good wealth answered, Yes, indeed, I've already brought forth the resolve for Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi. Then Megha, all of a sudden, descended from the lion's throne, prostrated his 5 limbs on the ground, and bowed to good wealth. Then he scattered gold and silver flowers, priceless precious pearls, and using supremely wonderful powdered chandana incense and a limitless variety of ornaments, covered him over from above. Moreover, he scattered a limitless variety of fragrant flowers and various other gifts as offerings. He afterwards stood up in praise, saying, good indeed, good man, that you can bring forth the resolve for Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi. Good man, if someone can bring forth the resolve for Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi, then he does not sever the seeds of all Buddhas. Then he adorns and purifies all Buddha Kshatriyas. Then he brings all living beings to maturity. Then he understands the nature of all dharmas. Then he enlightens to and comprehends the seeds of all karma. Then he perfects all conduct. Then he does not sever all great vows. Then he understands in reality as it is, the separateness from the seed nature of greed. Then he can clearly see all the differences within the three periods of time. Then he causes his faith and understanding to become forever firm and solid. Then he is maintained and aided by all thus come once. Then he is recollected by all Buddhas. Then he becomes the same as all bodhisattvas. Then he is lauded by and pleases all worthy sages. Then he is revered and adored by all Brahma kings. Then he is one to whom all the heavenly lords make offerings. Then he is protected by all yakshas. Then he is attended by all raksasas. Then he is welcomed by all dragon kings. Then he is one whom the Kinnara kings praise in songs and chants. Then he is one whom all worldly lords will extol and delight over. Then he causes all the realms of living beings to attain peace and security, that is to say, by causing them to renounce the evil destinies, by causing them to escape from the places of difficulties, by severing the root of all poverty, by giving rise to the bliss to all gods and humans, by encountering and drawing near to good knowing advisers, by listening to vast great Dharma, receiving and upholding it, by bringing forth the Bodhi resolve, by purifying the Bodhi resolve, by illumining the Bodhisattva way, by entering into the wisdom of a Bodhisattva, and by dwelling on the grounds of a Bodhisattva. Good men, you should know that what a Bodhisattva does is most difficult. It is difficult for him to appear, and difficult for one to encounter him. To be able to see a Bodhisattva is twice as difficult. A Bodhisattva is one whom all living beings rely on, because he causes them to grow and brings them to accomplishment. He is the savior of all living beings because he plucks them out of suffering and hardships. He is the place where all beings take refuge because he protects and guards the world. He is the rescuer of all beings because he delivers them from fear. The Bodhisattva is like the wind wheel because he upholds all in the world so that they will not fall into the evil destinies. He is like the great earth because he makes the good roots of living beings increase and grow. He is like the great sea because his blessings and virtue pervade without exhaustion. He is like the pure sun because his wisdom light universally illumines. He is like Sumeru because his good roots are lofty and transcendent. He is like the bright moon because his wisdom light appears. He is like a fierce general because he smashes and subdues demon armies. He is like an imperial lord because within the city of Buddha Dharmas, he obtains sovereignty. He is like a blazing fire because he burns up living beings' thoughts of self and love. He is like a great cloud because he lets fall limitless wonderful Dharma rain. He is like the timely rain because he causes all the roots and sprouts of faith of living beings to increase and grow. He is like a boatman because he navigates the Dharma sea, landing at a haven. He is like a bridge because he can cause one to cross over the sea of birth and death. Megha, upon thus praising good wealth, caused all the bodhisattvas to become delighted. After this he emitted various variegated lights from his face, universally illumining the triculocosm, all of the living beings within it, who came into contact with this light, all the dragons, spirits up to and including the Brahma gods, all came to where Megha was. Then Megha, the great Lord, employed expedients to reveal, proclaim, discriminate, and explain the Dharma door of adornment with a wheel of syllables. Upon hearing this Dharma, all of those living beings became irreversible in Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi. At that time, Megha returned and ascended his seat and said to good wealth, "Good men, I've attained the wondrous sound Dharani. I can discriminate and know, within the trichilocosm, the languages of all gods, all dragons, yakshas, gandharvas, asuras, garudas, kinnaras, mahoragas, humans and non-humans, up to and including all the languages of Brahma gods. As it is with this trichilocosm, so too, throughout the 10 directions, in countless, up to and including ineffably ineffable worlds, it is all the same way. Good men, I only know this Dharma door of a bodhisattva's wondrous sound Dharani light, but as to how all bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, can universally enter the seas of all living beings' various thoughts, the seas of all their various creations, the seas of all their various names and terms, the seas of all their various words and languages, and how they can universally enter into speaking the seas of all profoundly secret Dharma phrases, into speaking the seas of all ultimate Dharma phrases, into speaking the seas of all Dharma phrases in which one condition can encompass all that is conditioned within the 3 periods of time, into speaking the seas of superior Dharma phrases, into speaking the seas of the utmost superior grade of Dharma phrases, into speaking the seas of differentiated Dharma phrases, into speaking the seas of all differentiated Dharma phrases, how they can universally enter into the seas of all worldly incantations, the wheel of adornment with all sounds, and the limit of the wheel of all differentiated syllables. How can I possibly know or speak of such merit and virtue? Good men, south of here is a village called Grove of Dwelling, is an elder called Liberation. Go to him and ask him how a bodhisattva cultivates the bodhisattva conduct, how a bodhisattva accomplishes the bodhisattva conduct, how a bodhisattva amasses the bodhisattva conduct, and how a bodhisattva considers the bodhisattva conduct. At that time, because of his good knowing advisor, the youth good wealth brought forth deep esteem towards the Dharma of all wisdom. He deeply planted pure faith and profoundly increased his own benefit. Bowing at Megha's feet, he sorrowfully wept. He circumambulated him limitless, measureless times, gazing up at him with longing admiration. He bade farewell and took his leave. 5. Dwelling of endowment with experience. At that time, the youth good wealth pondered all bodhisattvas' dharani door of adornments with the light of unobstructed understanding. He deeply entered all bodhisattvas' door of the seas of languages. He recollected all bodhisattvas' door of knowing, fine and subtle experience for all living beings. He contemplated all bodhisattvas' door of the pure mind. He accomplished all bodhisattvas' door of the light of good roots. He purified and regulated all bodhisattvas' door of teaching and transforming living beings. He understood clearly all bodhisattvas' door of wisdom that gathers in living beings. He solidified all bodhisattvas' door of vast, great determination and inclinations. He abided in and maintained all bodhisattvas' door of supreme determination and inclinations. He purified and regulated all bodhisattvas' door of the various profound faiths and understandings. He pondered all bodhisattvas' door of measureless good intent. His vows became solid, and his mind did not tire. He used all armor as his own adornment. His vigorous, profound intent was irreversible. He became endowed with indestructible faith, which was like Vajra and Narayana, the indestructible ones. He protected and upheld the teachings of all good knowing advisors. Concerning all states, he obtained indestructible wisdom. He had the universal door of purity. What he practiced was unobstructed. His wisdom light was perfected and universally illumined all things. He was replete with the light of uniting and holding of all the grounds. He completely knew all the various differences in the Dharma realm. He had no relying and no dwelling. He was level, equal, and non-dual. His self-nature was purified. He was adorned in all respects. In all conduct, he attained the ultimate. His wisdom was pure, and he had left behind all attachments. He knew the various dharmas of the 10 directions, and his wisdom was without obstruction. He traveled to the various places in the 10 directions, his body not tiring. He had clear understanding of all the different karmas of the 10 directions. There was not a single Buddha of the 10 directions whom he did not see appear before him. He could deeply enter all the different time periods of the 10 directions. Pure and wonderful Dharma filled his heart. The samadhi of universal wisdom clearly illumined his mind. His mind constantly and universally entered the state of level equality. He was touched by the illumination of the thus come one's wisdom. The flow of all wisdom continued without interruption. In neither his body nor mind did he ever separate from Buddha Dharmas. He was aided by the spiritual powers of all Buddhas. He was illumined by the light of all thus come ones. He accomplished great vows. His vow bodies everywhere pervaded all nets of Kshatriyas. All Dhamma realms universally entered his body. He progressively traveled for a period of 12 years until he arrived at the city, grove of dwelling. He sought everywhere for the elder liberation. After he beheld him, he prostrated himself with his 5 limbs to the ground, stood up, put his palms together and said, "Sagely One, now that I come face to face with a good knowing advisor, I obtain vast and great good benefits. Why is this? It is difficult to see a good knowing advisor. It is difficult to get to hear him. It is difficult to get to have him appear. It is difficult to get to serve him. It is difficult to get to draw near to him. It is difficult to welcome and accept him. It is difficult to encounter him. It is difficult to dwell together with him. It is difficult to please him. It is difficult to follow him. Now I've met you and obtained good benefits. Sagely One, I've already brought forth the resolve for Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi, for the sake of serving all Buddhas, for the sake of meeting all Buddhas, for the sake of seeing all Buddhas, for the sake of contemplating all Buddhas, for the sake of knowing all Buddhas, for the sake of being certified to sameness with all Buddhas, for the sake of bringing forth the great vows of all Buddhas, for the sake of fulfilling the great vows of all Buddhas, for the sake of being endowed with the wisdom light of all Buddhas, for the sake of accomplishing the multitude of conducts of all Buddhas, for the sake of attaining the spiritual penetrations of all Buddhas, for the sake of being endowed with all the powers of all Buddhas, for the sake of acquiring the fearlessnesses of all Buddhas, for the sake of hearing all Buddha Dharmas, for the sake of receiving all Buddha Dharmas, for the sake of upholding all Buddha Dharmas, for the sake of understanding all Buddha Dharmas, for the sake of protecting all Buddha Dharmas, for the sake of being one substance with all the multitudes of bodhisattvas, for the sake of having good roots, which are no different from those of all bodhisattvas, for the sake of perfecting the paramitas of all bodhisattvas, for the sake of accomplishing the conduct which all bodhisattvas cultivate, for the sake of giving rise to the pure vows of all bodhisattvas, for the sake of attaining the treasury of awesome spirituality of all Buddhas and bodhisattvas, for the sake of attaining the infinite great light of wisdom of the Dharma treasury of all bodhisattvas, for the sake of attaining the vast great treasury of samadhi of all bodhisattvas, for the sake of accomplishing the treasury of limitless and countless spiritual penetrations of all bodhisattvas, for the sake of using the treasury of great compassion to teach, transform, tame, and subdue all living beings so they reach to the ultimate limit, for the sake of manifesting the treasury of spiritual transformations, for the sake of completely using my own mind to attain sovereignty within the treasury of all sovereignties, for the sake of entering the treasury of purity and using all marks as adornments. Sagely one, I now with such thoughts, such intentions, such inclinations, such wishes, such aspirations, such considerations, such venerations, such expedients, such ultimacies, such humility, come to the place of the Sagely One. I've heard that the Sagely One is skilled at guiding and teaching the multitudes of bodhisattvas, that you can use expedients to express and clarify your attainments, that you show them the way, that you act as a bridge for them, that you transmit to them this Dharma door, that you cause them to get rid of their obstructions of confusion and inversion, that you pluck out the arrow of indecision, that you chop through the net of doubts and delusions, that you illuminate the dense thicket of their minds, that you wash away their minds' filth and turbidities, that you cause their minds to be pure and white, that you cause their minds to be clear and cool, that you rectify the flattery and crookedness in their minds, that you cut off their minds subject to birth and death, that you stop the unwholesomeness of their minds, that you untie their minds from attachments, that you free their minds from places of attachments, that you cause their minds to turn away from places defiling with love, that you cause them to quickly enter the states of all wisdom, that you cause them to swiftly arrive at the city of unsurpassed Dharma, that you cause them to dwell in great compassion, that you cause them to dwell in great kindness, that you cause them to enter the bodhisattva conduct, that you cause them to cultivate the doors of samadhi, that you cause them to enter certification to the positions, that you cause them to contemplate the Dharma nature, that you cause them to increase in their power, that you cause them to cultivate practices so that universally, with regard to everything, their minds will be level and equal. I only hope that the Sagely One will proclaim for me how a bodhisattva studies the bodhisattva conduct, how he cultivates the bodhisattva path, and how, according to that which he practices, he swiftly attains to purity and quickly comes to understand. At that time, the elder liberation, because of the power of his good roots from the past, the awesome spiritual power of the Buddhas, and the power from the recollection of Dharma Prince Manjusri, entered the Bodhisattva's Samadhi door, which is called the boundlessly revolving Dharani of universally gathering in all Buddha Kshatriyas. Upon entering this Samadhi, he attained a clear, pure body. Within his body there manifested Buddhas, of each of the 10 directions, many as dust motes within 10 Buddha Kshetriyas, as well as those Buddhas' countries and their assemblies in their way places, their various kinds of lights and all the events of adornments. There also manifested the spiritual penetrations and transformations that these Buddhas practiced in the past, all of their great vows, their dharmas that aid the way, all of their practices of escape, their purifications and adornments. They were also seen all Buddhas accomplishing equal and proper enlightenment, turning the wonderful Dharma wheel, and teaching and transforming all living beings. All such states were completely manifested in his body, without any impeding obstructions. Their various shapes and marks, and their various successive orders stayed as they originally were, and were not jumbled with each other. Their various countries, their various assemblies, their various way places, their various adornments and ornamentations. Within them, all the Buddhas were manifesting various spiritual powers, establishing various vehicles and paths, and displaying various vow doors. Perhaps by dwelling in the Tushita heaven, in one world system, they were performing the work of a Buddha, or perhaps they were performing the work of a Buddha by descending from the Tushita palace within one world. In the same way, perhaps by dwelling in the womb, or by being born, or by dwelling in the palace, or by living the home life, or by going to the way places, or by smashing the demon armies, or by being reverently surrounded by gods and dragons, or by being earnestly requested to speak Dharma by all worldly rulers, or by turning the Dharma wheel, or by entering the parinirvana, or by their sharira being distributed, or by stupas and temples being erected for them. In the midst of all living beings, all these thus come once manifest in the various assemblies, in the various worlds, in the various destinies, having various families and clans, having various desires and delights, having various karma and conducts, having various languages, having various faculties and natures, having various afflictions, having the habit of slumber. They might dwell in a minute and tiny way place, or they might dwell in a vast great way place, or they might dwell in a way place the measure of 1 yojanas, or they might dwell in a way place the measure of 10 yojanas, or they might dwell in a way place the measure of yojanas, as many as dust motes in ineffable Buddha Kshetriyas. They were employing various spiritual penetrations, various languages, various sounds, various Dharma doors, various doors of uniting and holding, and various doors of eloquence. They were employing various seas of the noble truths and the various fearlessnesses of the great lion's roar. They were speaking of all living beings' various good roots, their various recollections and intents. They were bestowing various bodhisattva predictions. They were speaking all the various Buddha dharmas. Everything that those thus come ones said could be completely heard and received by the youth good wealth. He could also witness the inconceivable samadhis and spiritual transformations of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. At that time, the elder liberation arose from samadhi and said to youth good wealth, "Good man, I've entered and come out of the thus come one's door of liberation, of unobstructed adornments. Good man, when I enter into and come out of this liberation door, I see the eastern direction's Jambunada Go-light world, with dragon self-mastery king thus come one worthy of offerings, of proper and equal enlightenment, surrounded by the assembly in his way place, and Vairochana treasury bodhisattva acting as the leader. I also see the southern directions, rapid power world, with universal fragrance thus come one, one worthy of offerings, of proper and equal enlightenment, surrounded by the assembly in his way place, and Mind King Bodhisattva acting as the leader. I also see the western directions fragrant like world, with Sumeru Lamb King thus come one, one worthy of offerings, of proper and equal enlightenment, surrounded by the assembly in his way place, an unobstructed mind, Bodhisattva, acting as the leader. I also see the northern directions Kashaya banner world, with indestructible Vajra thus come one, one worthy of offerings, of proper and equal enlightenment, surrounded by the assembly in his way place, and courageous advanced Bodhisattva, acting as the leader. I also see the northeastern directions all superior and wonderful jewels world, with a state of no attainment I thus come one, one worthy of offerings, of proper and equal enlightenment, surrounded by the assembly in his way place, and no attainment skilled at transformation Bodhisattva, acting as the leader. I also see the southeastern directions, fragrant flaming like sound world, with fragrant lamb thus come one, one worthy of offerings, of proper and equal enlightenment, surrounded by the assembly in his way place, and Vajra blazing wisdom Bodhisattva, acting as the leader. I also see the southwestern directions wisdom sun universal light world, with Dharma realm will banner thus come one, one worthy of offerings, of proper and equal enlightenment, surrounded by the assembly in his way place, and manifesting all transformations banner, Bodhisattva, acting as the leader. I also see the northwestern directions universal purity world, with all Buddha's jeweled, lofty, and victorious banner thus come one, one worthy of offerings, of proper and equal enlightenment, surrounded by the assembly in his way place, and Dharma banner king Bodhisattva, acting as the leader. I also see the direction above, infinite succession of Buddha's world, with perfect banner of boundless wisdom light thus come one, one worthy of offerings, of proper and equal enlightenment, surrounded by the assembly in his way place, and Dharma realm doors banner king Bodhisattva, acting as the leader. I also see the direction below, Buddha-like Lamb, with unobstructed wisdom banner thus come one, one worthy of offerings, of proper and equal enlightenment, surrounded by the assembly in his way place, and all Buddha's Kshatriyas banner King Bodhisattva, acting as the leader. Good men, I see each of the 10 directions thus come once, as those who are many as dust motes in 10 Buddha Kshatriyas, that all of those thus come once, neither come to where I am, nor do I go to them. If I wish to see Amitabha thus come one in the world of happiness, then as soon as I formulate the intention to see him, if I wish to see Vajra light thus come one of the Chandana world, or precious light thus come one of wonderful fragrance world, or jeweled lotus flower light thus come one of the lotus world, or still quiet light thus come one of wonderful golden world, or unmoving thus come one of wonderful bliss world, or lion thus come one of good dwelling world, or moon enlightenment thus come one of mirror brightness world, or Varuchana thus come one of jeweled lion adornment world, I can immediately see all of these Buddhas, and yet these Buddhas do not come here, nor do I go to them. I know that all Buddhas and my own mind are completely like a dream. I know that all Buddhas are like an image or reflection, that my own mind is like water. I know that all the physical characteristics of all Buddhas together with my own mind are both like an illusion. I know that all Buddhas together with my own mind are like an echo. I realize this as such and recollect and consider this as such, that all Buddhas I see arise from my own mind. Good men, you should know that the Bodhisattvas cultivate all Buddha Dharmas. They purify all Buddha Kshatriyas. They accumulate wonderful conduct. They tame and subdue living beings. They bring forth great vows. They enter the door of all wisdom. They playfully roam with self-mastery, the door of inconceivable liberation. They attain the Buddha's body. They manifest great spiritual penetrations. They pervasively travel to all the Dharma realms of the 10 directions. With subtle and fine wisdom, they universally enter all kalpas. All of them completely come from my own mind. Therefore, good men, you should use good dharmas to support and aid your own mind. You should use the water of Dharma to moisten your own mind. You should, with regard to states, purify and regulate your own mind. You should use vigor to make firm your own mind. You should use patience to open up and broaden your own mind. You should use certification to wisdom to cleanse your own mind. You should use wisdom to brighten and sharpen your own mind. You should use the Buddha's self-mastery and ease to open and disclose your own mind. You should use the Buddha's level equality to extend and enlarge your own mind. You should use the Buddha's 10 powers to illumine and observe your own mind. Good men, I'm only able to enter into and come out of this liberation door of unobstructed adornment of thus come once. But as to how all bodhisattvas, mahasattvas attain unobstructed wisdom, how they dwell in unobstructed conduct, how they can always see all of the Buddha's samadhis, how they obtain the samadhi of non-dwelling in the limit of nirvana, how they understand and penetrate the state of universal door samadhi, how they are totally level and equal with regard to the dharmas of the 3 periods of time, how they can skillfully send out division bodies that pervades all kshatriyas, how they dwell in all Buddha state of level equality, how they can see the states of the 10 directions all manifest before them, how their contemplation through wisdom is clear about everything without exception, how they, within their bodies, completely manifest the formation and decay of all worlds, how they do not give rise to the thought of duality toward their own bodies and all worlds. How can I possibly know or speak of such wonderful conduct? Good men, south of here at the boundary of Jambudvipa is a country called Milasparana, where there is a bhikshu named Sea Banner. Go to where he is and ask him how a bodhisattva studies the bodhisattva conduct and how a bodhisattva cultivates the bodhisattva path. At that time, the youth Good Wealth prostrated himself at the feet of the elder Liberation and circumambulated him to the right. He regarded him and extolled with praises. He pondered him with longing admiration and wept sorrowfully. He single-mindedly recollected how he should rely upon the good knowing adviser, how he should attend upon the good knowing adviser, how he should revere the good knowing adviser, how from the good knowing adviser he could behold all wisdom, how toward the good knowing adviser he should never be in opposition or rebellious, how towards the good knowing adviser he should not have any thoughts of flattery or deceit, how towards the good knowing adviser his heart should always be in accord, how he should regard the good knowing adviser as a kind mother, so as to renounce and separate from all unbeneficial dharmas, how he should regard the good knowing adviser as a compassionate father, so as to give rise to all good dharmas. He then bade farewell and took his leave. 6. Dwelling or rectification of the mind. At that time, the youth Good Wealth, with a single mind, properly recollected the teachings of that elder. He contemplated the instructions of that elder. He recollected that inconceivable bodhisattva door of liberation. He pondered that inconceivable bodhisattva wisdom light. He deeply entered that inconceivable gateway of universal entry of bodhisattva. He clearly saw those inconceivable spiritual transformations of thus come ones. He understood completely that inconceivable universal entry into Buddha Kshatriyas. He distinguished that inconceivable adornment by the powers of the Buddhas. He contemplated those inconceivable states and separate positions of samadhis and liberation. He understood that inconceivable ultimate non-obstruction of different worlds. He cultivated those inconceivable, solid, and profound minds of a bodhisattva. He brought forth that inconceivable, pure karma of great vows by a bodhisattva. He gradually proceeded south until he came to the village of Milasparana on the border of Jambudvipa. He sought everywhere for the bhikshu sea banner. Then he saw that bhikshu, seated by the roadside in full lotus. He had entered samadhi. He had ceased inhaling and exhaling, and he entertained no extraneous thoughts or awareness. His body was calm and unmoving. From the soles of his feet there issued forth countless hundreds of thousands of millions of multitudes of elders, lay people, and Brahmans. They all used various exquisite articles to adorn their bodies. Each of them donned a jeweled headdress. On their crowns was fastened a luminescent pearl. They pervasively traveled to all worlds of the 10 directions. They ring down all kinds of gems, all kinds of beads and necklaces, all kinds of garments, all kinds of food and drink, which were imbued with superior flavor, that is according to the Dharma, all kinds of flowers, all kinds of garlands, all kinds of fragrances, all kinds of paste incense, all kinds of delightful objects of provision. In all places they saved and gathered in all poor and destitute living beings. They comforted all distraught and afflicted living beings, and caused them to be happy, with their minds and intentions purified, so they could accomplish the unsurpassed path of Bodhi. From both of his knees there issued countless hundreds of thousands of millions of multitudes of Kshatriyas and Brahmans. They were all wise and clever. Their various physical characteristics, their various features, and their various garments were all superior, wonderful, and adorned. They pervaded all worlds of the 10 directions, and with kind words and like work, they gathered in all living beings. Specifically, they enabled the poor to become well endowed. They enabled the ill to become well. They enabled those in peril to become secure. They enabled the terrified to be soothed. They enabled the worried and suffering to all become happy. Moreover, they used expedient means to exhort and guide them, causing them all to leave that which is evil and to dwell securely within good dharmas. From his waist there issued forth countless immortals, equal to the number of living beings. Some were dressed in garments made of grass, some in garments made of tree bark. Each of them held a bottle for purification. They had a steel and awesome compartment. They revolved about, traveling back and forth in the worlds of the 10 directions. Within empty space, they used a Buddha's wondrous sound to praise the thus come ones. They proclaimed all dharmas. Perhaps they spoke of the path of pure Brahma practices, thereby causing beings to cultivate, practice, tame, and subdue all of their faculties. Perhaps they proclaimed that all dharmas are without a self-nature, thereby causing them to contemplate this and to bring forth wisdom. Perhaps they spoke of the languages, discourses, and theories of the world, regulations and rules. Or perhaps they gave instructions on the wisdom of all wisdoms and the expedients essential for escape, thereby causing each of them to follow the right sequence in cultivating their karma. From his 2 ribs there issued forth inconceivable dragons and inconceivable dragon maidens, who manifested all dragons' inconceivable spiritual transformations. That is, they rained down inconceivable clouds of incense, inconceivable clouds of flowers, inconceivable clouds of garlands, inconceivable clouds of jeweled canopies, inconceivable clouds of jeweled streamers, inconceivable clouds of wonderful jeweled objects of adornments, inconceivable clouds of money jewels, inconceivable clouds of jeweled necklaces, inconceivable clouds of jeweled thrones, inconceivable clouds of jeweled palaces, inconceivable clouds of jeweled lotus flowers, inconceivable clouds of jeweled crowns, inconceivable clouds of God's bodies, and inconceivable clouds of heavenly maidens, all of which pervaded empty space as adornments. They filled up the way places of all Buddhas of the worlds of the 10 directions as offerings, and caused all living beings to become happy. From the swastika character on his chest, there issued forth countless hundreds of thousands of millions of Asura kings. All of them manifested inconceivable powers of illusion and self-mastery, which caused immense quaking within 100 worlds. All the waters of the sea spontaneously bubbled and seethed. All kings of mountains crashed and clanged against one another. Not a single heavenly palace failed to shake. Not a single demon's light was not obliterated. Not a single demon army was not smashed and subdued. They universally caused all living beings to renounce their thoughts of arrogance, to destroy their thoughts of anger and harming, to smash their mountains of afflictions, to put to rest all their evil dharmas, so they would always be without contention and debate, and forever be harmonious and good to each other. Moreover, with the power of illusion, they enlightened living beings. They caused them to eradicate their evil offenses. They caused them to become terrified of birth and death. They caused them to escape from all the destinies. They caused them to be apart from defilement and attachment. They caused them to dwell in the mind of unsurpassed Bodhi. They caused them to cultivate all of the Bodhisattva's conduct. They caused them to dwell in all of the paramitas. They caused them to enter all of the grounds of a Bodhisattva. They caused them to contemplate all of the subtle and wonderful Dharma doors. They caused them to know of all the expedients of all Buddhas. In such a way, what they did pervaded the Dharma realm. From his back, for the sake of those who should be crossed over by the 2 vehicles, there issued forth countless hundreds of thousands of millions of sound hearers and solitarily enlightened ones. For those who were attached to self, they spoke of there being no self. For those who were attached to permanence, they proclaimed that all activities are impermanent. For those who conducted themselves based on greed, they spoke the contemplations of impurity. For those who conducted themselves based on anger, they spoke of the contemplation of the mind of compassion. For those who conducted themselves based on stupidity, they spoke the contemplation of arisal from conditions. For those who conducted themselves based on equal share of all of these, they spoke the Dharma of the state of responding with wisdom. For those who were fond of attaching to states, they spoke the Dharma of there being nothing at all. For those who were fond of attaching to locations of still quietness, they spoke the Dharma of bringing forth great vows, so as to universally benefit all living beings. In such a way, what they did pervaded the Dharma realm. From his two shoulders there issued forth countless hundreds of thousands of millions of yakshas and raksasa kings. All of their different shapes and features, their different forms and appearances, whether long or short, were all horrifying. They were surrounded by limitless retinues who protected all the living beings who practiced good, and the assemblies of all worthy sages and bodhisattvas. Before those who were inclined toward the proper dwelling, or those who were already within proper dwelling, they sometimes would manifest as Vajra-wielding spirits and protect and guard all of the Buddhas and Buddha's dwellings. Or they sometimes pervasively protected all worlds. They caused those who had terror and fear to become peaceful and secure. They caused those who had sickness to get rid of their sickness. They caused those who were suffering and afflicted to be relieved and freed. They caused those who had evil offenses to become disgusted and to repent. They caused those who had met with disasters and unexpected calamities to be rid of them. In such ways, they benefited living beings, enabling them to renounce the wheel of birth and death and to turn the wheel of proper Dharma. From his stomach there issued forth countless hundreds of thousands of millions of Kinnara kings, each of whom was circumambulated by immeasurable Kinnara maidens. Moreover, there issued forth countless hundreds of thousands of millions of Gandharva kings, who were circumambulated all around by Gandharva maidens. Each of them played countless hundreds of thousands of kinds of heavenly music. They made songs, chants, and praises about the actual nature of all dharmas. They made songs, chants, and praises about all Buddhas. They made songs, chants, and praises about bringing forth the Bodhi resolve. They made songs, chants, and praises about the cultivation of the Bodhisattva conduct. They made songs, chants, and praises about the door of all Buddhas realizing proper enlightenment. They made songs, chants, and praises about the door of all Buddhas turning the Dharma wheel. They made songs, chants, and praises about the door of all Buddhas manifesting spiritual transformations. They disclosed and proclaimed the door of all Buddhas parinirvana. They disclosed and proclaimed the door of all the Buddha's teachings. They disclosed and proclaimed the door of causing all living beings to become happy. They disclosed and proclaimed the door of adorning and purifying all Buddha Kshatriyas. They instructed and proclaimed the door of revealing all subtle and wonderful dharmas. They instructed and proclaimed the door of renouncing and leaving behind all obstructions which arise from afflictions. They instructed and proclaimed the door of bringing forth all good roots. In such a way, what they did pervaded the Dharma realm of the 10 directions. From his face there issued forth countless hundreds of thousands or millions of wheel-turning sage kings. They were replete with the 7 jewels, and were circumambulated by the 4 armies. They emitted the light of great giving, and rained down measureless treasures, causing all poor and destitute beings to become fulfilled and content. They caused them to forever cut off the practice of taking what is not given to them. Countless hundreds of thousands of heavenly maidens, their features upright and proper, were all given away with an unattached mind. They caused them to forever cut off the practice of sexual misconduct. They caused them to give rise to the mind of kindness and not to sever the life of others. They caused them to always be absolutely true in their speech and not to engage in false, deceitful, and unbeneficial chatter. They caused them to speak of gathering in and not to practice divisiveness. They caused them to use gentle and compliant speech, which was without any coarseness or harshness. They caused them to always proclaim the most profound, decisive, and clear meaning, and not to use meaningless, frivolous, or contrived language. They spoke to them of having few desires, causing them to be rid of greed and love, so that their minds would be without blemish or fault. They spoke to them of great compassion, causing them to dispel their indignation and rage, so that their minds would attain purity. They spoke for them the actual meaning, causing them to contemplate all dharmas and to enter profoundly causal conditions and become skilled at understanding the principle of truth. They pulled out the thorn of deviant views. They smashed the mountain of doubt and delusion, and they completely vanquished all obstructions. In such a way, what they did pervaded the Dharma realm. From his two eyes, there issued forth countless hundreds of thousands of millions of sun discs, which universally illuminated all those in the great hells and other evil destinies, causing them to separate from suffering. They also illumined within all worlds, causing them to be rid of darkness. They also illumine all the living beings of the 10 directions, causing them to remove and be free of the obstructive cataract of stupidity. In countries of filth and turbidity, they emitted light of purity. In countries of white silver, they emitted light the color of yellow gold. In countries of yellow gold, they emitted light the color of white silver. In countries of Vaidurya, they emitted light the color of crystal. In countries of crystal, they emitted light the color of Vaidurya. In countries of lapis lazuli, they emitted light the color of carnelian. In countries of carnelian, they emitted light the color of lapis lazuli. In countries of imperial blue, they emitted light the color of Sun Treasury Money King. In countries of Sun Treasury Money King, they emitted light the color of imperial blue. In countries of red pearls, they emitted light the color of Moonlight Net Treasury Money King. In countries of Moonlight Net Treasury Money King, they emitted light the color of red pearls. In countries that were formed from a single gem, they emitted light in the color of many gems. In countries formed of many gems, they emitted light the color of one single gem. They illumine the dense forest within the minds of living beings. They perform the measureless deeds of all living beings. They adorn and ornamented the states of all worlds. They caused the minds of all living beings to obtain clear coolness and to be greatly happy. In such a way, what they did pervaded the Dharma realm. From the white hair mark between his brows, there issued forth hundreds of thousands of millions of Lord Chakras, who toward states had all gained sovereignty. A money pearl was fastened on each of their crowns, and its light illumined all the heavenly palaces. It quaked all the Sumerus, kings of mountains. It awakened all the great heavenly assemblies. It extolled the power of blessings and virtue. It proclaimed the power of wisdom. It brought forth their power of joy. It upheld the power of their determination. It purified the power of their mindfulness. It solidified the power of their body resolve. It praised the joy of seeing the Buddhas, thus causing them to expel worldly desires. It praised the joy of hearing Dharma, thus causing them to be weary of the states of the world. It praised the joy of contemplating wisdom, thus causing them to terminate their worldly defilements. It stopped the warring of the asuras. It cut off contention and affliction. It destroyed the mind that fears death. It brought forth the vow to conquer all demons. It established the Sumeru, king of mountains, of the proper Dharma. It accomplished all the deeds and affairs of living beings. In such a way, what they did pervaded the Dharma realm. From his forehead there issued forth countless hundreds of thousands or millions of Brahma gods. Their forms and appearances were upright and adorned. Nothing in the world could compare with them. Their awesome comportment was still and quiet. Their words and sounds were fine and wonderful. They exhorted the Buddha to speak Dharma. They praised the Buddha's merit and virtue. They caused all bodhisattvas to bring forth happiness. They could perform the measureless deeds of all living beings. They universally pervaded the worlds of the 10 directions. From his head there issued forth bodhisattva assemblies, as many as the dust motes in limitless Buddha Kshatriyas. All of their bodies were adorned with fine characteristics. They emitted boundless light. They spoke of various conducts. Specifically, they praised the practice of giving, thereby causing living beings to renounce their stinginess and greed, and to obtain worlds adorned with various wonderful jewels. They praised the merit and virtue of holding precepts, thereby causing living beings to forever cut off all evil and to dwell in the precepts of kindness and compassion of a bodhisattva. They spoke of how all existences are all like a dream. They spoke of how all desires and delights are without flavor, thereby causing living beings to separate from the fetters of affliction. They spoke of the power of patience under insult, thus causing their minds to obtain self-mastery with regard to all dharmas. They extolled the golden-hued body, thereby causing living beings to separate from the filth of anger and hatred, to give rise to the practices of regulating, and to cut off the path of the animals. They praised the practice of vigor, thereby causing beings to leave worldly indulgences and laxness far behind, and all diligently cultivate limitless wonderful dharmas. They also praised for them the paramita of dhyana, thereby causing all their minds to obtain comfort. They also proclaimed the paramita of prajna, revealing and instructing them in proper views, thereby causing living beings to delight in the wisdom of self-mastery and to pull out all poisonous views. They also spoke of various different ways of acting in accordance with the world, thereby causing living beings, although free from birth and death, to still take rebirth with comfort in the various destinies. They also manifested spiritual penetrations and transformations and spoke of self-mastery over one's lifespan, thereby causing living beings to bring forth great vows. They also spoke to them of the accomplishment of the power of dharani, the power of bringing forth great vows, the power of the purifying and regulating through samadhi, the power of receiving rebirth with self-mastery. They also proclaimed all the various modes of wisdom, that is, the wisdom of universally knowing all the faculties of living beings, the wisdom of universally knowing the activities of all minds, the wisdom of universally knowing the thus come one's 10 powers, the wisdom of universally knowing the sovereignty of all Buddhas. In such a way, what they did pervaded the Dharma realm. From his summit, there issued forth countless hundreds of thousands of millions of bodies of thus come ones. Their bodies were peerless. All the fine marks, minor characteristics were pure and adorned. Their awesome radiance was brilliant and dazzling, like a mountain of true gold. Their limitless light universally illumined the 10 directions. They emitted wondrous sounds that filled the Dharma realm. They manifested the power of limitless great spiritual penetrations and universally let fall Dharma rain on all worlds. That is, for the bodhisattvas who were seated in the Bodhi way place, they let fall the Dharma rain of universal knowledge, of level equality. For bodhisattvas on the position of anointing the crown, they let fall the Dharma rain of entrance into the door of universality. For bodhisattvas on the position of Dharma prince, they let fall the Dharma rain of universal adornment. For bodhisattvas on the position of the pure youth, they let fall the Dharma rain of solidity of mountains. For bodhisattvas on the position of non-retreat, they let fall the Dharma rain of sea treasuries. For bodhisattvas who had accomplished the position of rectifying the mind, they let fall the Dharma rain of the states of universality. For bodhisattvas on the position of endowment with skill in means, they let fall the Dharma rain of the door of the self-nature. For bodhisattvas on the position of noble birth, they let fall the Dharma rain of according with the world. For bodhisattvas on the position of cultivation, they let fall the Dharma rain of universal compassion and sympathy. For bodhisattvas who were new in study, they let fall the Dharma rain of the treasury of accumulation. For bodhisattvas who had brought forth the initial resolve, they let fall the Dharma rain of gathering in living beings. For bodhisattvas of faith and understanding, they let fall the Dharma rain of inexhaustible states universally appearing before them. For living beings in the form realm, they let fall the Dharma rain of the door to universality. For Brahma gods, they let fall the Dharma rain of the treasury of universality. For those in the heaven of comfort, they let fall the Dharma rain of producing strength. For demon multitudes, they let fall the Dharma rain of the mind banner. For gods in the transformation of bliss heaven, they let fall the Dharma rain of pure mindfulness. For gods in the Tushita heaven, they let fall the Dharma rain of bringing forth the intent. For gods in the Suyama heaven, they let fall the Dharma rain of happiness. For gods in the Triastimsa heaven, they let fall the Dharma rain of swiftly adorning the realm of empty space. For Yaksha kings, they let fall the Dharma rain of joy. For Gandharva kings, they let fall the Dharma rain of Vajra wheels. For Asura kings, they let fall the Dharma rain of vast states. For Garuda kings, they let fall the Dharma rain of boundless light. For Kinara kings, they let fall the Dharma rain of all supreme worldly wisdoms. For human kings, they let fall the Dharma rain of not delighting in attachments. For the dragon kings, they let fall the Dharma rain of the banner of joy. For Mahoraga kings, they let fall the Dharma rain of great rest. For living beings in the hells, they let fall the Dharma rain of adornment with proper mindfulness. For animals, they let fall the Dharma rain of the treasury of wisdom. For beings in the realm of King Yama, they let fall the Dharma rain of fearlessness. For beings in places of difficulty and disasters, they let fall the Dharma rain of universal peace, thereby causing all of them to enter into the assemblies of worthy sages in such a way what they did pervaded the Dharma realm. Moreover, from each and every hairpaw on the body of the bhikshu's sea banner, there came forth nets of lights, many as the numbers of dasmots within asankheyas or Buddha kshetriyas. Each of these nets of light were replete with asankheya forms and appearances, asankheya adornments, asankheya states, asankheya deeds, all of which filled up all the Dharma realms of the 10 directions. At that time, the youth good wealth single-mindedly contemplated the bhikshu's sea banner and brought forth thirst and admiration. He recollected that samadhi and liberation. He pondered that inconceivable samadhi of a bodhisattva. He pondered that inconceivable sea of experience which benefited living beings. He pondered that inconceivable door of universal adornment, of effortlessness. He pondered that pure wisdom of adorning Dharma realms. He pondered that wisdom of receiving the Buddha's aid. He pondered that bringing forth of the power of self-mastery of a bodhisattva. He pondered that power of solidifying the vast, great vows of a bodhisattva. He pondered that power of increasing and broadening all bodhisattva conduct. In such a way, he stood there, pondering and contemplating, while one day and night transpired, up to and including 7 days and nights, a half month, a whole month, up to and including a full 6 months, and following this another 6 days transpired. After this, the bhikshu's sea banner arose from his samadhi. Then the youth good wealth spoke in praise. Sagely one, rare and unique, how most profound this samadhi is, how most vast and extensive this samadhi is, how limitless are the states this samadhi encompass, how inscrutable the spiritual powers of this samadhi are, how peerless the brilliance of this samadhi is, how innumerable the adornments of this samadhi are, how invincible the awesome power of this samadhi is, how level and equal the state of this samadhi is, how universally this samadhi illumines the 10 directions, how infinite the benefit of this samadhi is, because it can eliminate the limitless suffering of all living beings. That is to say, it can cause all living beings to separate from the suffering of poverty, to escape from the hells, and to avoid the realm of animals. It closes the door to all difficulties and opens the path to humans and gods. It causes human beings and gods to rejoice and causes them to delight in the states of dhyana. It can increase the delights of that which is conditioned and can show them the joy of living the conditioned. It can inspire them to bring forth the Bodhi resolve. It can cause them to increase in their conduct of blessings and wisdom. It can increase and develop their mind of great compassion. It can cause them to bring forth the power of great vows. It can enable them to understand the Bodhisattva path. It can cause them to be adorned with ultimate wisdom. It can cause them to tend toward the state of the great vehicle. It can illumine the conduct of universal worthy. It can cause them to certify to the wisdom light of all the grounds of a bodhisattva, it can cause them to accomplish the vows and conduct of all bodhisattvas. It can cause them to dwell securely within the state of the wisdom of all wisdom. Sagely one, what is the name of this samadhi? The Bhikshu C. Banner said, Good man, this samadhi is called renunciations and attainments of the universal I. It is also called the pure light of the state of prajna paramita. It is also called the door of universal adornment and purification. Good man, it is due to my cultivation and practice of prajna paramita that I've attained the samadhi of universal adornment and purification, which is equal to millions of asankheyas of samadhis. The youth good wealth then asked, Sagely one, what is the state of this samadhi ultimately like? The Bhikshu C. Banner replied, Good man, upon entering this samadhi, one completely understands all worlds without obstruction. One travels to all worlds without obstruction. One transcends all worlds without obstruction. One adorns all worlds without obstruction. One cultivates and regulates all worlds without obstruction. One adorns and purifies all worlds without obstruction. One beholds all Buddhas without obstruction. One contemplates that vast, great, awesome virtue of all Buddhas without obstruction. One knows of the spiritual powers of self-mastery of all Buddhas without obstruction. One certifies to all the vast and mighty powers of all Buddhas without obstruction. One enters the sea of all merit and virtue of all Buddhas without obstruction. One receives the boundless, wonderful dharmas of all Buddhas without obstruction. One enters all Buddha dharmas and cultivates wonderful conduct without obstruction. One certifies to level and equal wisdom with which all Buddhas turn the Dharma wheel without obstruction. One enters the sea of assemblies of way places of all Buddhas without obstruction. One contemplates dharmas of the Buddhas of the 10 directions without obstruction. One uses great compassion to gather in and receive living beings of the 10 directions without obstruction. One always gives rise to great kindness that fills the 10 directions without obstruction. One beholds the Buddhas of the 10 directions with an untiring mind without obstruction. One enters the seas of all living beings without obstruction. One knows the sea of all living beings' faculties without obstruction. One obtains the wisdom to know the differences among living beings' faculties without obstruction. Good man, I only know this single samadhi of the light of prajna paramita. But as to how all bodhisattvas enter the sea of wisdom, how they purify the states of the Dharma realm, how they arrived at all destinies, how they pervade boundless kshetriyas, how they are sovereign in dharani, how their samadhis are purified, how their spiritual penetrations are vast and great, how their eloquence is infinite, how they skillfully speak of the grounds, how they act as a place of reliance for living beings. How could I possibly know of their wonderful conduct or discourse on their merits and virtues, or understand what they practice or comprehend their states, or reach to the end of the power of their vows, or enter their essential doors, or fathom their certification, or speak of their shares in the way, or dwell in their samadhis, or use their states of mind, or obtain the wisdom of level equality that they possessed. Good men, south of here is a hamlet called Sea Tide. There you will find a grove called Universal Adornment. Within that growth, the Upasika Asha dwells. Go to where she is and ask her how a bodhisattva studies the bodhisattva conduct and how she cultivates the bodhisattva path. At that time, in the presence of Bhikshu C. Banner, the youth good wealth obtained a body of durability. He reaped a wealth of wonderful dharmas. He entered into profound states. His wisdom became clear and lucid. His samadhi brightly illumined. He came to dwell in pure liberation. He beheld the most profound dharmas. His mind dwelt securely within all doors of purity. His wisdom light filled the 10 directions. His heart became elated. His joy was boundless. With his 5 limbs he prostrated himself on the ground, making obeisance at his feet. He circumambulated him limitless times, and reverently gazed up at him with longing, admiration. He pondered and contemplated, sighing with adoration and yearning. He held his name. He envisioned his countenance. He recollected his voice. He pondered his samadhi and the state of great vows which he practiced. He received the pure light of his wisdom. Thereupon, he bade farewell and took his leave.